So
in a way that,
stopping blacks today from being successful?
in some cases, yes. I'll give an example. The way school funding.
What? So white people are stopping black people from being successful today?
You teach African American studies at LACC,
Yes.
right? What do you teach about
I
to them?
teach a course in African politics, African American history, and what I teach them, primarily I'm looking at teaching them about how power works.
Give me an example of that.
So how do African Americans find themselves in the condition that they are in America, right? So if we look at all the major indices, right, whether it's health, wealth, et cetera, we have to ask ourselves, right, how did African Americans find themselves in this particular position?
And you say?
So we look at systems of power to sort of pull all of this stuff out.
And so,
What's going on, everybody? My name is LFR JoJo. Today we're looking at someone named Jesse Lee Peterson getting into a debate with a professor about racism. Apparently the professor teaches African American studies at colleges. I am a college student, and at my college I took an African American studies class. So I'm very interested to see where this debate goes and how it leads to the racism for black people in America discussion. So without further ado, let's get into it.
so how did most, not all, but most black Americans end up in such a negative condition?
Well, I think without generalizing, we can say that sure, racism was an integral factor
Meaning what?
in the condition of African Americans, and we can also say that it's probably largely due to slave culture, right?
Really?
Yeah, there's
And
probably...
what is racism?
Well, I think if we were to define it broadly, some people would say that racism is discrimination, prejudice against a certain group of people based on their skin color, but I would argue that that's probably a muted definition, that we would have to add systems of power in that definition, because I can dislike someone just because they have a size 13 shoe, that we may call prejudice, but as long as I don't do anything to you, there's probably really no harm in that. But if I'm able to keep you from having a job because you have a size 13 shoe, that's probably, right, would be, if we were to extend this to race, that would be racial.
So who is stopping black people from having a job?
That's really a very strange question, because I wouldn't know the circumstances, right? I mean, what do you mean by that?
Because you said racism is the power kind of.
Yeah, there is a power dynamic that has prevented African Americans from achieving the same level of success as, say, whites. And I'll give an example. So if we were to add up the median income of African Americans in the United States, broadly speaking, it would come out to about $3,000 per family. If we were to do that for whites, the amount would be about $100,000 per family. So then how would you then account for the disparity in the amount of financial acumen or resources that a white family has versus a black family?
So who's stopping black people from achieving those things?
Well, if we were to look at this from a historical standpoint, there have been a number of significant studies that have drawn this out. For example, Kenneth Hamilton's study on white wealth, black repression, where he clearly outlined how in one particular Texas town after the Civil War, whites moved physically and through laws to prevent black people from gaining resources, right?
So who's stopping black people from achieving financial?
So Jesse Lee Peterson keeps asking the same question over and over and over again. He's asked the same question about 4 times. What is stopping black people from achieving wealth? What is stopping black people from getting jobs? That's what he's asking. And the professor hasn't answered it yet. And I've been very patient. I haven't paused it. I haven't went on him yet. But here's the problem. The reason he's asking you this is because as an African American's history professor, you of all people should know what's stopping black people from achieving wealth, because you brought up the statistic. If you look at the wealth per family, the average black family has $3,000, whereas the average white family has $100,000. You brought up a minor statistic. However, when he asks you, okay, then what's stopping black people from getting the wealth? He's asking you because you're a professor. You go back to the Civil War, and that's the problem. How am I supposed to take you serious when you can't even answer a direct question on what's stopping black people today from achieving wealth? You went back to the civil rights era in a random town in Texas to bring up an example of what's stopping black people. You can't be serious. Like, and I'm gonna listen, but so far, I'm trying to be fair. I just can't do it yet.
Especially now.
Today, that's a really hard one, and I think it's somewhat of a loaded question. So I'll take myself, for example. I think that I've made some fairly decent decisions in my life that have led me to have some financial success. And I think it's all predicated on the fact that I had a really decent college education. And the decision to go to college was my decision, right? So, but I can't speak for everyone, right? All I can understand is that I think America is designed in a way that prevents a lot of African Americans from achieving the same kind of advancement that the white community has.
Who designed it that way, and who's stopping them today?
Whites designed it that
Who's
way.
stopping them
Let's not
today?
get it twisted. Whites have designed the system
So
in a way that,
stopping blacks today from being successful?
in some cases, yes. I'll give an example. The way school funding.
What?
Right? So we look at school funding. School funding.
So white people are stopping black people from being successful today. You know, there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems in the black community. There are a lot of issues that we have. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot. And there's a lot of issues that I personally have in my life, as we all do. But I've never been facing a controversy and said, wow, I blame that white person for doing this to me. I've never thought that in my life. And I've had a lot of issues. We all have. So for you to sit here and say, yeah, I went to a good school, I'm very financially successful, I'm good. But the black community is still struggling, so we gonna blame white people. That's a crazy thing to say. Especially considering black people, we can make better decisions for better wealth. The same way you chose to go to college, we can still choose to go to college. We can do that. We can choose to get trades. We can choose to do these things. We can choose to get married, have two-parent households. We can do that. No one is making us not choose this. We are not choosing it. Point blank, period. But for you to say, yeah, it's white people's fault. Come on, man. That's not even a fair thing to say. I'm gonna be honest, it's not fair. But let's continue.
Is predicated on zip codes, right? So if you live in an area that has high incomes, you'll necessarily go to a school that is well funded. So we know that we can fundamentally understand that. So the proper way to do this would be to apportion the school funding so it's even-handed. So we take a little bit of money from a wealthy community and spread it to the poorer communities, but that doesn't happen.
I happen to know that black schools are getting more money than the white schools are because of the black politicians, and white people are afraid now, and yet the blacks are turning out screwed up. Why is that?
I didn't say that.
You didn't say what?
I didn't say the blacks are turning up screwed up.
No, I said it.
Oh,
I said,
okay.
and yet they're turning out screwed up. So they're getting the money going to the schools.
I'm not so sure. I mean...
that they're screwed up, or that they're getting the money?
Well, I would say this, that there are some inherent problems within the African American community, and not all of them can be attributed certainly to the white community, but a great number of them can be. I'll just give you an example of this. I went to a historically black college in Texas, Prairie View A&M University.
I'm familiar with that.
And Prairie View was founded because the whites in Texas did not want black students to go to Texas A&M. So they founded Prairie View, and what they systematically did for its existence since 1876 is they underfunded the university. They did this knowing that even under Jim Crow, the idea was separate but equal. They had separate, but it was not equal. So just to keep going here, just for a moment, the answer to that is that I know a person like yourself could not think that would be anywhere fair, nor would you probably want to say that those students receive the same type of quality of education as those students who went to the all-white Texas A&M.
I happen to think that that's perfect. That if that happened, that it happened that way, because when people are not supposed to take care of you, You're supposed to take care of yourself. And I happen to know that in the good old days when boys were boys and men were men, if somebody refused to give you something, you go out and get it yourself. It brought out the best in black people.
Yeah, sure.
And because I grew up on a plantation in Alabama under the Jim Crow laws, and because blacks didn't rely on the whites or begging someone for something, they had families, they worked hard, they created their own, they were doing quite well. It wasn't until they started begging and blaming
but you can't,
with the civil rights movement that they became weak and pathetic.
But I know that you're not trying to suggest that life for African Americans was some type of a utopia in 1870.
Well, I don't know about
life for most black people was a living hell.
I don't know about 1870, but I know about from 1949 to this day, it's been paradise for blacks. But they're so angry and demoralized, they don't realize it.
I will concede that I think that there are some black people who are definitely angry, and there's good reason for it.
There's never a good reason to be angry.
Okay.
Let me ask, if black people did what white people did, and the Jews,
which is...
If they got married instead of having 70% of the children out of wedlock, if the mother stayed home and deal with the children when they go and come from school, the father provided. If they set a good example for their kids of working hard, treating people the way they would like to be treated, not blaming at others, would blacks be well off today, or would they still be in this hole that
I don't know how to answer that question, because I think the African American experience is unique.
This is kind of sad for me because he's a professor, and I wouldn't want you teaching my kids this. I'm gonna be honest. I don't want you teaching my kids this. You're making excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse on why black people are not achieving what we want to achieve in the country. You blamed everybody. You've blamed the civil rights movement. You've blamed white people. You've blamed your school not getting enough funding. You blamed everybody except for us. You blame everybody's. This is unbelievable for me. Because I would think as a professor, you would know we can do better. The average GPA for Prairie View A&M is what, a 3.3? You do realize majority of big funding for colleges come from wealthy donors, right? They come from successful donors, right? If your school isn't getting funding, that means your school isn't producing super high achieving donors to give back to that school. You know this because you're a professor. Your job is to go get funding for research. But you don't say, oh, we need to produce smarter students at Prairie View. I'm not calling the students there not smart, but you don't say we need to produce high achieving students who can give back to us when they become alumni. You're not saying that. You're saying it's the white man's fault. The white man's fault for everything. The white man's fault that we don't have two parents in the household. It's the white man's fault we're not going to college. It's the white man's fault we can't pass $70K a year. It's the white man's fault. It's always the white man's fault. This is crazy to me. You haven't blamed us for one thing. We're not allowed to make decisions. We can make our own decisions. And I get it. America was built off of slavery. That's its foundation, and its foundation. We were forced to come here. However, when you look at modern times and you look at modern struggles within the black community, and you have the audacity to say it's the random white man's fault, I can't take you serious, because we can make better decisions. Be honest.
I mean, what other racial group had organizations that were designed and built specifically to kill them?
No, I'm asking you.
I mean,
whole lot of other ones.
Yeah, we could say probably in Nazi Germany, certainly the Nazi regime was designed in a way to
white people have been
exterminate Jews.
enslaved too, and they're doing quite well.
Where's that?
But I want to go back to my question.
Wait a minute, but where's that?
They were enslaved in this country. They have been enslaved
in this
here before.
country. Where?
Oh yeah, there were white slaves as well.
Who?
But let's go back to the
question.
Wait a minute.
White slaves
I want to go
where?
back to the question. You didn't answer my question first.
Okay.
If black people didn't have 70% of their babies out of wedlock, and they loved what was right and did the right thing, got married, set a good example, taught their kids how to work and be responsible, treat people the way that they would like to be treated, would they still be whimpering and whining and begging and blaming about 1800s?
I don't know.
today?
You're making the assumption that inherently there are some of these things that black people don't do. Certainly there is a problem of out of babies being born out of wedlock, but that's symptomatic of the white community.
But we
right?
talk
we
about
see
the
that. I
black,
think
but the
the
whites are not
highest.
begging and blaming. It's the blacks who are begging and blaming.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it as begging and blaming.
What would you call it?
I'm not sure how to answer that. What I would argue is I think that there is an argument within the black community that there is a debt that is owed to black people.
So I actually looked it up. And this is from CEOUSA.org. The report also found that illegitimate birth rates vary considerably by race and Hispanic origin. The percentage of out-of-wedlock births for non-Hispanic whites is 21.9%, but for non-Hispanic blacks, it's 69.3%. This guy's doing everything but being accountable, bro. Like, it's like you want to blame white people for everything. You want to blame white people for everything. He refuses to say that black people can make better decisions. You are enabling the black community to suffer and be poor. That's what you're doing. As a professor at that, you are enabling poor decisions. You are enabling it. You refuse to say black people can make better decisions. Which is ironic to me because as a professor, you're here to mold and improve the lives of young black people or young people in general. And your students, because you work at an HBCU, are black. Majority are black. You should tell them the truth because you are successful. You have money. You are very successful. You're a professor. You probably have tenure. You went to college. You did things the right way. You are successful. You're more rich. You have more money than majority of the country. Majority of white people, believe it or not. You have more money than the majority of white people, believe it or not. You could be instilling what you did to your students, but instead you're lying to them. You don't even believe your own words. Because if you believed your own words, you wouldn't even be in the position you're in. You basically said, yeah, I did things the right way. I went to college. I didn't have no babies out of wedlock. I did what I was supposed to do. But other black people, they can't do it. They can't do what I did. I'm different. I'm special. You're not special. They can do what you did, but you got to be honest with them.
Amazing. So I need to go back to my question because you didn't answer it yet.
Yeah, because I'm not sure quite how to
If black
answer that.
people did what the Jews are doing, the whites are doing, and others, if they got married, they set a good example for the kids. The father went out and provided for his family. They taught the kids to work and be responsible. Would the blacks be in the situation they're in today?
Okay, I would argue that your question, just as its surface, is a somewhat loaded question, and I think the bottom baseline answer to that would be, of course, right? We would.
So why not teach them to do that?
Who's not teaching them to do that?
Are you teaching them that it's not the white man and you guys are doing it wrong?
I teach my students that every person has a responsibility to do for themselves.
But are you also teaching them that the white man is trying to hold them back?
I'm not teaching them that the white man is trying to hold them back. I am telling them that there are institutions and patterns of racism that are embedded in the fabric of America that will at times challenge you.
Do you tell them that white people are racist?
I tell them that there are racist people in America.
Do you tell them that those racist people are white people?
No, I do not.
So you don't say white people are racist?
I tell them that there are racist people in America.
And who are those people?
They could be just about anybody who has power in this country. If someone has the ability to deny you a job based on your skin color, they probably are racist.
So I hear that the Jews have a lot of power. Are they racist?
Some could be. I don't know. I don't know that for a fact.
But they have a lot of power.
Yeah, if a Jewish person denied you a job based on your skin color, that's probably racist.
So do you agree that they have a lot of power?
Well, some Jews do. Some black people have a lot of
so
power. Some white people have a lot of power.
Are those Jews racist?
Which ones? The ones that discriminate against you because of your skin color? No, not because they have power.
Are white people who have power?
No, not because they have power.
Okay. There are, it's changing a little bit. They're trying to change it, but light-skinned blacks discriminated against dark-skinned blacks. Some of them won't hire them.
Yeah, we have
Are,
a colorism
are
issue.
they racist?
Well, I would say that if a light-skinned black person had the power to deny you a job, they probably might be racist. If they're doing it because you are a dark-skinned black person, they probably are racist.
So anyone
Black people, if they have power, can be racist. We can see this in Haiti.
do you believe that all white people are racist? Or just
Oh,
some?
absolutely not.
Oh, okay. Your
There are
wife.
some really good people of all races.
Okay.
No.
Do you tell your class that?
Oh, absolutely.
And so, when I was growing up under the Jim Crow laws, blacks did better then because they believed in God. They got married. They had, they took care of their families. The parents and grandparents were around. They did much better then. They bought land. They created their own schools. They came back as professionals. They were doing better, and they were not blaming anything on white people. They were not blaming anything on white people. What was the difference then and
Okay.
now when they got all the freedom now to do whatever they want?
Okay, now I think I understand a little bit better where you're going with your argument. Then this is where I will concede. I think that there is one essential thing that black people, I think, don't talk about a lot, and that is after the Civil War, black people really did have to depend on themselves. And I think people like...
You should have to depend on yourself. Yes, you should depend on yourself. When immigrants come over to America, do you think they don't depend on themselves? Of course they depend on themselves. And that's... Before you get into this, I'm not even going to finish this. Unless y'all want a part 2. But that's the problem. We need to get into the mindset of, yes, we need to depend on ourselves. No one's coming to save you. I'm going to be honest. No one's coming. It's you. It's just you. If you are a young black man or a young person watching this, a young black person watching this, and you have this mindset, I'm going to be honest with you. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody cares that you complain about this. Nobody cares at all. Some people might care, but they don't care that much. You need to go out and get it yourself. Point blank, period. Nobody's going to come for you. They might show some sympathy for you, but deep down, everyone has their own issues. And if you listen to this mindset, oh, they had to go get it themselves. Yeah, everyone does. I'm sorry, except the very, very few select elite people who probably get put in positions they don't deserve. That is not 99.99999% of us. I'm sorry. Most of us wake up, we go to work, we do what we have to do. We're regular citizens. None of us get to skip the line. White, black, it don't matter. That's life. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of this. My name is LFR JoJo, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.